Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Come on!
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Fridays, Srimad Bhagavatam study.
Tell a friend.
It's our study group.
Discussion.
It's our discussion group. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's a show. It's a Srimad Bhagavatam show.
Really, that's the most appropriate way to mention it.
Welcome to the show. Well, it's got to be welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam something. Welcome to the show. Welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam show. That sounds like you and I are going to act it out. Okay, I will be Ashwatthama, and you punish me by cutting off half my mustache.
Okay, Raghunath. Let's get right
how are
into
you?
it today.
I had a
I'm
very
doing
tough
great.
day yesterday. I had a very tough day yesterday
Because of the grouting.
I want to give a shout out to all the people who build stuff with like their hands, like construction workers, like Brian and Boofish and a lot of you guys out there. I'm trying to dip my toe into being a different me. You know, I built a stone wall. Okay, I was like, you know what? I've never done that.
Raghu,
Grouting,
just the way you are.
You know what? I know, but I want to improve my thing.
Don't go change
a little
it.
bit. And I made a complete. Well, I think something that should have took 3 hours. I made a complete.
You destroyed your bathroom or something?
I made a complete disaster in that bathroom. Brian, oh my God. I made a mess.
Is it worse than it used to be?
Oh God.
Really?
Yes, it's a mess.
Okay. Man's got to know his limitations, Raghu.
I don't think it's worse than it was.
What are you talking about?
What you need to do
out everywhere, hardened like stone.
You need to practice manifesting. If you just manifest it, it will transform into a perfectly grouted.
I watched like Martine's like, there's YouTube videos. Thank you, Martine, for that very instructional message. I watched about 5 YouTube videos on grouting. I thought I had it down. Martine, that hurt. Martine, you think I just like I'll ask my inner self. I'll ask the super soul to grout for me. I watched the videos, Martine.
Okay. Just watching videos doesn't make you a great grouter. But let's move on from that topic, Raghunath.
Saturday, September 23rd, Krishna Fest 2023. I'm reading announcements.
Don't read that. Let's do our own announcements.
Well, I want to read someone else. I'm trying to support the chat board. A sacred celebration of Bhakti Yoga. Krishna Fest 2023, Island Shovel. I guess because it's written like love with Jagannath's head as the O. That means Philadelphia. Is that Philadelphia?
Philadelphia Rath Yatra.
Oh, that's what's going on.
Cool.
Krishna Fest. They've renamed Rath Yatra after thousands of years of tradition. Interesting.
Okay, please, let's move this on, Raghunath.
Okay.
Mara.
All right. We have Bhakti Recovery Group meetings at 12:30 and 1 p.m. Eastern time today. The Cult of Josh Kane's asana class for our Patreon members is canceled this morning because he's not feeling well.
It's the Cult of Cain, by the way.
It's going around.
And we have Q&A day tomorrow. So if people have questions, they can email us to wisdomofthesages108@gmail.
I'm going to the Waitsfield Inn, the Prasadam Bed and Breakfast. Oh, I wonder if Neil from Memphis is going to be there. Steve Amari. Well, we're going to the Swanson Inn.
We're going to
That's
move
their
on to the more substantial part of the show now, which is first the nugget and then the Bhagavatam.
You're so like you're calling me insubstantial right now.
I'm calling you banter insubstantial.
I've got an announcement. I listened to the Bhakti Recovery podcast yesterday.
Oh yeah,
with you on it. Now can I
Okay.
talk? You were
No.
interviewed on it. Now may I speak?
You think you hang that in front of, dangle that carrot in front of me? You think I'm gonna take a bite out of that bait?
It's a great podcast. If you haven't checked it out, Bhakti Recovery. I like that one, Brihat Mridanga Das. You know, there's something nice when people just get vulnerable and share their heart and their story. I love what you're doing, Jiva G. Keep that going. If you haven't done it, go to Bhakti Recovery Group podcast right
Bhakti
now
Recovery
and
Podcast.
subscribe. Yeah, Bhakti Recovery Podcast. Go there, subscribe, give 5 stars, give a comment. While you're at it, go to Wisdom of the Sages, give 5 stars and a comment. If you haven't
Tell a
done
friend.
that, I'm quite shocked. Okay. You
Let's
ready
get
for
into the nugget. It's from one of our a very well-known German philosopher.
Yes. Frederick, do you know how to pronounce his name?
I do.
Say it. Try it.
Well, the first name or the last name?
Well, I'm hoping you get Frederick pretty easily.
Even that, it's not quite Frederick. It's
Frederick.
Friedrich
Frederick.
Nietzsche.
Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, poet, cultural critic.
Irani,
composer.
I saw her roll her eyes.
Oh, she's laughing at you.
She's laughing
Before the
and
show,
mocking the two
Stu
of
was
us.
like, "Do you know how to pronounce it?" And I was like, "Yeah, Friedrich Nietzsche." She's like, and he's like, "No." And now so I threw it back at him to have him pronounce it. And our Germans are saying, "Oh no, he's got it."
Nietzsche, isn't it? Nietzsche.
How do you pronounce Vincent van Gogh? Huh?
Oh, I'm not even gonna go there.
Or the Reich Museum? Hmm?
Okay. Why don't we just read the nugget?
Okay, here's Nietzsche's.
He's a German
Go on.
philosopher, poet, cultural critic, composer, and this may interest you, Raghunath.
Philologist,
Yeah.
lover of words.
Yeah.
I'm a
What does he say?
philologist, too. Those who cannot understand how to put their thoughts on ice
On ice.
should not enter into the heat of debate.
Okay.
Okay, I hate to break this one out, Costuva, but the
What?
other day
You got in a debate?
I told no. Well, no, I put my thoughts on ice. You know, there's some people who come at you with text messages, not mentioning names, or but people, you know, someone just sent me a very confronting text message, and I said, you know what? I've just chose not to answer these.
No,
And you said, "Oh, isn't that called putting? Isn't called that the ostrich technique?" And I said, "Well, no, it's actually stepping away from it and letting things simmer down." And you're like, "Well, it sounds like your avoidance to me. Actually, you should come back like this." And you know what's interesting? After that, I sort of like walked away from that like podcast, and then Amy Stellar came and she goes, "I heard you on the show today." And she said, "You know what? Here's what I say about what that happened." I said, "Your emergency is not my emergency."
Oh no, I
Isn't
get
that
that.
Isn't
And I
that a great
appreciate
one?
Amy
Your
Sandler's
emergency
point.
is not my emergency.
But sometimes if you don't deal with that other person's emergency, at least in some way, then it becomes a bigger emergency. It does become your emergency. That's what's my point.
Amy, what do we say to that?
Amy, help. Come back.
Help me out, Amy. She's dealing with someone's emergency right now.
Okay. No, but here's what I'm getting from this, Raghunath.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, and we can get into it on the show today, but our culture is very weak around questions of debating and arguing.
Yeah.
We are very poor at it. We do it on the lowest level. It's pitiful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you even go to like the presidential debates, which
It was all like it was name calling, character assassination.
it's just
It's like, come on, you guys. Can we just talk about?
Yeah, there's no like, here's one theory, here's a counter theory. let's look at the arguments. Let's find the weaknesses and the strengths in the arguments. Let's try to come to a higher truth. No, none of that.
Yeah.
It's a joke. Yeah.
Right. It's a save face competition. Even if they're wrong, they'll never admit they're wrong.
Well, never. Because the goal isn't to come to truth.
Right.
And the Vedic culture had such a rich tradition of debate. We'll get into it a bit today. But even just in our common dealings, I like what Nietzsche is saying here. If I'm saying that correctly. Well, the ability to put one's own thoughts on ice. It's not like some kind of existential crisis to open your mind up to someone else's counter thoughts, right? You can take your own thoughts, you can put them on ice. We'll get back to them, but at least for this conversation, I'm going to be open to actually not just preparing myself to respond to what I'm hearing, but actually opening myself up to being transformed by what I'm hearing. If either sides aren't open to that, then progress isn't made, and we just get into bitter conflicts. And I think our society is largely, defined by our bitter conflicts, currently.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. I've got nothing much to say about this, but
Okay.
yes, I agree with it.
Yes.
I agree.
I'm glad you're open to that. Well, then we don't have to get too into, because I think we'll get into it as we read today. We'll go more into depth on this topic. Okay.
All right, good. So let's go into the Bhagavatam. What do you say?
Let's go right into it then.
Dive right in. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurudmadatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet.
Okay.
Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 4, Text 27 and 28.
I think we read that yesterday. I think we're on 29, isn't it?
No, I don't think we read that.
No. Okay, then let's read it.
Raghu's on the ball.
Are you sure we didn't read this?
You laugh.
I think we did, but I could be wrong. I'm open. I put my own convictions here on ice.
Let's ask the chat board.
Chat board?
Chat board, I think.
No,
They're like, I think we're on 26.
She seems to know everything about grouting.
We definitely did 26.
We definitely did
Yeah,
26.
we did 26.
Okay. Just as a learned Brahmin, who are expert in performing ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices, can extract the fire dormant within wood and fuel.
Oh yeah, we didn't read this.
Very interesting, huh? There's fire in the wood.
Fuel. It's the sun. It's invested
There's
in that
sun
wood.
energy invested in wood.
Yeah.
That's why when it falls on an oak tree, there's a lot more fire in there than pine, because
Grows slower.
oaks take longer to grow. Yeah.
You love that one, don't you? Thank you, Mr. Nature. Mr. Green Jeans.
Oh, God. Oh.
Okay, please keep going. This is great stuff.
All right.
Just as great learning.
Just as learned Brahmins, who are expert in performing ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices, can extract fire dormant within wood and fuel.
They know it's in there, even though you can't see it.
We just by chanting the 15 Samidani mantras. Oh, that's how they do it?
That's a clue.
That's a clue. That's a clue to how to extract
fire.
See, they would make
mantra.
fire by mantra. They wouldn't even use matches.
Right.
I wonder when matches.
And that's
were
how you
invented.
know. You see, the idea there was, let's say you go to the ceremony and you're wondering, is this just a bunch of hocus pocus? Is this just some empty ritual?
All of a sudden, they create a fire with words.
With mantra, they create some fire right in front of you. Like, okay, this guy's for real.
4 generations of strictly following Krishna conscious kids, Prabhupada said. They'll be lighting fire with mantra.
Okay.
Isn't that exciting?
Let's get busy here.
Thus proving the efficacy of their Vedic mantras. So those who are actually advanced in Krishna consciousness, completely putting out Bic lighters out of business, right?
Yes.
Thus proving the efficacy of Vedic mantras. So those who are actually advanced in consciousness, in other words, those who are Krishna conscious can find the super soul, who by his own spiritual potency is situated within the heart. The heart is covered by the 3 gunas, the modes of material nature, and the 9 material elements: material nature, the total material energy, the ego, the mind, the 5 objects of the sense gratification, and also by the 5 material elements in the 10 senses. These 27 elements constitute the external energy of the Lord.
Okay.
Great yogis meditate upon the Lord, who is situated as the super soul, the Paramatma, within the core of the heart. May that super soul be pleased with me.
Let's just stop for 1 second, because this is a
big one.
So he's mentioning that so far in these Hamsaguya prayers, Prajapati Daksha has been dwelling a lot on the idea about different levels of perception, right? Our general inability to perceive that there is a designer, a controller, a facilitator behind the workings of the universe, making it possible for us to do even the smallest things, even the tiny things that we do have to be facilitated by that facilitator, the Paramatma. Bigger things like we were talking yesterday from the Bhagavad Gita, like directing karmically the next body that we take and the next form that we go into. And ultimately, the cycles of creation and destruction of the universes over massive periods of time, that there is behind it all a person, a director. And even within our own body, that soul of the entire universe, that director of the entire universe exists within our own body. He's saying generally we don't perceive that. But here he's saying great yogis, they meditate on that. Just like we don't see fire in wood, but the Brahmanas, they know it's in there and they can extract it. We need to become expert at extracting, seeing God within everything. Right? Okay.
Well put.
Thank you.
That's very good. The super soul is realized when one is eager.
Here's the method.
For liberation from the unlimited varieties of material life. That's a great line.
Okay.
The super soul is realized when one is eager for liberation.
Let me just share. So in that, what they just shared is there's 27 material elements that compose our body, and it's all moving under the influence of the 3 modes of material nature, which are, each one is influencing us in a different way, towards total dullness, towards distraction, or towards greater lucid thought. Mm-hmm. That's the wood, right?
Right.
And
nice. Good. Yeah, that's the wood.
That's what's covering.
Fascinated by the bark.
We're fascinated by the exterior bark. We don't penetrate deeper in and find God within. Okay, please continue.
One actually attains such liberation when he engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and realizes the Lord because of his attitude of service.
Okay, this is a little different than what we heard yesterday, where Prajapati Daksha was saying going into deep states of trance. Here it's saying through service, through bhakti,
service,
one can perceive the Lord behind
some
everything.
fire, so to speak.
Yeah.
The Lord may be addressed by various spiritual names, which are inconceivable to the material senses.
Okay.
When will that supreme personality of Godhead be pleased with me?
When, oh when?
When, oh when? These are all prayers again. This is prayers by a very elevated celestial being.
Okay.
Offering prayers to God. Text 29. Anything expressed by material vibrations, anything ascertained by material intelligence, and anything experienced by material senses or concocted within the material mind is but an effect of the modes of material nature, and therefore has nothing to do with the real nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So all of our mental games,
they're all just
they can't reach that God within the wood, that fire within the wood. God within.
It's all mirages, isn't it? That which seems so solid are just like mirages.
Yeah, we don't perceive what's underneath the thread that's holding it all together.
The Supreme Lord is beyond the creation of this material world. For he is the source of the material qualities and creation.
He's the source of the wood that's got us all.
As the cause of all causes, he exists before the creation and after the creation. I wish to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Because stupid, this is why we got to read this every day. You don't read this. You don't just like dip into it now and then. You read the Bhagavatam was meant to read every day, because the external part of the wood, the bark, the knots of the circles and the cut wood, it's all so attractive, and you get lost in it. You get lost in the world of matter. And this brings you back to sort of like, nope, go a little deeper. And it pushes you again and again.
You know what it is, Ragnar? It's the friction. It's rubbing the wood together. When you read Bhagavatam, you think about it, you discuss it, you reflect on it. Right? You're rubbing the wood
little
together.
Fire by friction, huh?
Yeah, and then the fire comes out.
Ever do that? Ever do bow and drill? Bow and drill, fire,
reveal me
fire making?
As a city slicker that doesn't know anything.
You don't know fire by friction, do you? You just use those big lighters.
Okay.
All right.
Text 30.
Text 30, the Supreme Brahman, Krishna, is the ultimate resting place and source of everything. Okay. Everything is done by him. Everything belongs.
We don't get that, right? Everything's facilitated by him. We just desire, and he actually makes it happen, even our own actions, right, with our own body. Okay.
Everything belongs to him. Everything is offered to him. He is the ultimate objective. And whether acting or causing others to act, he is the ultimate doer.
Wow.
Yes. I tell you again and again, this analogy of like teenagers who sort of like, they are using their parents' car. They're using their parents' insurance for the car. They're using their parents' gas for the car. Yet they're sort of like driving around like they're doing everything. They're in control. They've figured it out. They don't understand, like,
all been facilitated.
You don't even know if the car breaks down. They're like, what the hell? You don't even know to call AAA. You don't have that. Like, we don't even know anything. We're just like entitled, thinking like, yeah, it's all ours. We've created everything. No, we're completely supplied, completely maintained, completely taken care of. He's the cause of all causes. He is well known as the Supreme Brahman who existed before all activities.
Okay.
He is one without a second. Isn't that nice? He's the one without a second. There's no one. He's got no twin.
Equal. No equal.
And no equal.
No competitor.
No clone. He is one without a second and has no other cause. Well, what caused him? Nothing. He's the original cause. Who created God then? People say that, right? Oh, yeah? God created everything, right? Well, who created God? Yeah. No, you didn't get me.
We say that creation indicates time, and he's beyond time. He's without this universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love when people think it's stumped. Yeah. I offer my obeisances unto him.
Okay. So there was a lot mentioned in that verse, Raghunath, that he's the resting place. He's the source of everything. Everything is done by him. This is what we're not perceiving. This is the fire within the wood. Again, up until this point, Prajapati Daksha has been talking about these different, our lack of perception of what's lying underneath. Now he's going to share something in this text 31, Raghunath, that's really interesting. He's going to say that our conflicts that we have in this world, that our debates, our battles, our misunderstandings, or you could say are just our constant, nonstop conflicts with one another, that he's actually behind that too. That he's actually keeping us bewildered. Unless you're really trying to see the fire underneath the wood, he will keep us bewildered. Even we think we're in control. Actually, he just has us, locking horns with one another. And we're the idea that we're locking horns with one another under the spell of illusion, and he's the master of that illusory power.
He's the source of the illusion.
Yeah.
As Shelter said, he's the source of the illusion that blindfolds those who do not want to see.
Exactly. Here you go, Raghunath. Text 31. You're going to love it.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances to the all-pervading supreme personality of Godhead, who possesses unlimited transcendental qualities, acting from within the cores of the hearts of all philosophers who propagate various views. He causes them to forget their own souls, while sometimes agreeing and sometimes disagreeing amongst themselves. Thus, he creates within this material world a situation in which they are unable to come to a conclusion. Isn't it?
Isn't it?
I offer obeisances unto him. They're just debating. It's just like
the conclusion
endless.
Is right there in these ancient texts, right? It's right there eternally. But we battle, we fight with one another, we insult one another.
Do you and I have to take the political stage and say, hey, everybody, listen to us here?
Chill out.
We've got some. I know you hate each other's guts. We can help here.
We can help.
Let me go steal the help.
You've forgotten your souls. Why don't we open up with that one, right?
Yeah, the Democrats won't like that.
Acting
Christians are like, yeah, a good Christian group. Well, we're not Christians either. What?
Acting from within the core of the hearts of all philosophers who propagate various views, he causes them to forget their own souls. We forget our own identities as eternal, spiritual, individual beings. And based on a false conception of the self, false ego, deeply invested in our false egos, and with our minds clouded by so many attachments based on the false ego, extending from the false ego, we take positions in this world and we argue in favor of them, and we lock horns with opponents that are doing the same thing in the other direction, and we never, ever reach a conclusion of what truth is. We never clear out all the fog of war and really get down to what's essential, right? What's true, you know?
Okay, so here we are. Text 32.
No, slow down. Whoa, Nelly. We're going to spend a little time with this one, Raghunath. You ready?
All right, let's go slower, please. I prefer we take this one real slow. You want a purport of 31?
No, I wanted to read to you a little something, Raghunath.
Oh, what you got? You got something prepared here? You did write a poem?
I didn't write a poem, but I wanted to read to you a bit about, in past weeks we've been discussing, how our faith in all the theology that stems out of these literatures isn't just something that we accepted just kind of sentimentally, but it's based on a foundation of faith on the broader, on everything that these Vedic texts are providing. It is such it has a rich philosophy. It has an incredible language. It has an incredibly rich culture. It has, medicine and mathematics and all these things. It had a very rich culture of debate, Raghunath. Very rich culture of debate. This is what kids should be learning in school. This kind, at least some of the kids, right?
Yeah, debate, logic,
and people should be aware of it.
Fallacies.
Now within this broader Vedic school, there are actually nuances in the way different Vedic schools understand debate, but there's a certain commonality across them. And from Nyaya, there's a school of philosophy called Nyaya, logic, right? And they're all about debate, and they had their different kind of 3 levels of debate that they would speak of.
Right.
Okay. One is called Vada, one is called Jalpa, and one is called Vitanda. Okay. You ready for them?
Yeah.
Now, Vada, the objective of the argument is to get clarity over the topic and arrive at a proper conclusion.
Okay.
They're putting their own preconceived ideas on ice, right? As Nietzsche would ask them to do. And they're coming forward saying, I may be proven wrong in this. Like my position may be proven wrong. That's okay. Because through the debate, if I am wrong, I'll learn what is true. So that'll be a good thing, right? So they're going into this without a preconceived notion necessarily, or at least they're opening up their preconceived notions to be changed.
Sure. It's stepping away from their own preconceived.
Yeah.
Yes.
The idea here is not to prove one's own point or to prove the
It's to
opponent
get to the
wrong.
bottom of the truth.
It's to arrive at truth. Exactly.
Right.
That's called vada. What a novel idea.
What a
right?
novel idea. Like,
Yeah.
I might not be right. What do you have to say?
Yeah, we might actually learn something through this debate, right? Now, the second one is called jalpa.
Jalpa.
Yeah, here the idea is to prove your point right and the other person's point wrong.
Okay.
That's the goal. That's what I'm going into this. That's what I want to do. The person, the people engaging in this debate, they're already convinced that they're correct and that the other person is wrong, and their goal is to win. Right. When the purpose of argument is only to prove that the other person is wrong, and the opponent who places the argument doesn't have any specific stand of their own, and the debate, and it's mentioned here. This shows you just how like nuanced their whole understanding of debate was. It says that in this type of debate, in the previous type of debate, what I'm about to discuss is not part of the debate. It's not allowed in. But here, in this type of debate, the debater can use for the establishment of their own position and for the refutation of their opponent's thesis such means as quibbling.
Quibbling.
Yes.
Quibbling.
Quibbling, illegitimate rejoinders.
Are you just making up words? What's quibbling? What's quibbling? Is quibbling a word? Quibble?
Yeah.
Quibble?
Yeah.
What is quibbling?
Quibbling is like a way to like distract someone that's, through techniques of argument, you're kind of like getting it off the point and winning through it.
Mara's got it here.
Got it?
To evade the point of an argument by
There you go.
caviling about words.
By conviling?
Conviling.
You
Now
just
we
gave
need
me another one.
Yeah, you're mentioning,
No,
we're
no.
digging our hole deeper here, Mara.
Conviling.
What is
Okay,
But,
quibbling.
it's
And what was the other
argumentative
word you used?
technique. Illegitimate rejoinders. What's a rejoinder? I think it's also kind of like a way of avoiding the topic.
Okay.
You got rejoinder there, Mara?
Yes, 1 second. Rejoinder is the defendant's answer to the plaintiff's replication, or an answer to a reply.
I keep
Oh,
on
so
needing. I
You're
keep on
allowed to.
needing a definition of the definitions.
You're allowed to use illegitimate rejoinders. Like, in other words, there may even be a logical fallacy in your response, but you pulled it off and you defeated the other, right? Maybe you threw a straw man out there, right? But you won,
Right.
because your opponent wasn't skillful enough to just point out that's a straw man. Here's what I'm really saying,
Sure.
So illegitimate rejoinders may be used in this kind of debate. And clinchers, Raghunath, any kind of clincher.
A clincher.
Yeah.
What's a clincher?
What's a clincher? A clincher is like
Am I the only guy who doesn't know these things?
It's kinda
Is
like
everybody
a
else like
checkmate.
rocking off.
It's like a checkmate, like you pin your opponent
Okay.
through some kind of argument. It's mentioned that there are 3 kinds of quibbling are listed, 24 kinds of illegitimate rejoinders, and 22 kinds of clinchers.
Ooh.
So they would really
This is like the concept of debate within the Vedic system, or is this
within the school of Nyaya?
within the school of Nyaya? Gotcha. Nyaya. I love that word.
Within
Nyaya.
the school of logic.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Interesting. It's interesting that they had this all thought out,
All thought out, Raghunath.
right? When people, right?
Yes.
Like, what were people doing in the West at that time, in the Western world?
I mean, you had debate and
They were
things like this,
quibbling,
but-
probably.
But you can see going way, way, way back, they were quibbling for sure. Okay, now the third is called Vitunda. This
Why
is
don't they
just.
teach this in school?
Oh, I tell you, were you in the debate club?
We didn't have one.
No.
We didn't have one. I just debated with anybody though,
All right.
and I
Well-
wasn't right on most of the things. But
Well, the third one, Raghunath, is called Vitunda.
Vitunda, okay.
This is wrangling.
Wrangling. Prabhupada used that word. I always loved it. I was like, what is he talking about? Because he would say he's a word wrangler, right?
Yeah.
Prabhupada would use that phrase. And
This
like,
is
we've never used the word wrangler.
Called
All we know is
mundane
like
wranglers.
wrangler jeans.
Yeah.
And to me, wrangler always meant like a lasso.
Lasso.
Oh, but that's because it was part of their.
The
Patch.
wrangler jeans. What is a wrangler?
I think it, Mara.
Well, wrangle is to dispute angrily or peevishly, or to engage in argument or controversy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
So
Also
now,
to obtain by persistent arguing or maneuvering.
okay.
Never knew
Now
that.
listen to me. Don't focus. Skip going back into 70s trivia. And
Wrangler jeans.
and this is when this vitanda is when the purpose of the argument is only to prove the other person wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and the opponent who places the argument doesn't have any specific stand of their own. This is what a lot of these political speakers that appear on the different so-called news channels do. They're not even presenting, like, their job is to tear the other side down. They don't even necessarily have to put forward an idea that's better, right?
Sure.
It's
not even their insight or their argument. It's whatever their networks that's hiring them to argue. They have to defend the
that's
network.
what they're used to do. Yeah. So no count in the previous two arguments. Counter theses were presented. Here's a thesis. Here's a counter thesis. Right. Here's one idea. Here's a better idea. Let's argue which one is better. Here, there's not even a counter thesis. It's the goal. The only goal is to tear down what the other person's presented. Right. And you can assume that there'll be all kinds of illegitimate rejoinders being engaged in this kind of debate, for sure, right? So this is what we're getting here, is that the idea that the brahmanas, right, the pure-hearted thinkers, they would have an affinity for vada, right, for honest debate where we're trying to get to truth. There's actually a fourth thing that's mentioned, Raghunath, it's called samvada. Right. Sometimes the conversations, like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where you have like Ramananda Samvad, that's when there's a student and a teacher, and the student is placing forward, in a sense, challenging questions, but they're not challenging the authority of the teacher, right? They're simply questioning to clarify their understanding with faith in the teacher. Right? So
that's the difference. Yeah. In Vedic teachings, you're encouraged to challenge, but it's challenge to get to the bottom of it, not to try to crush the teacher. Right. Now in the university, you have these students just tearing down the professors, and you're not trying to get to truth very often. You're just sort of like trying to fluff your feathers.
Right. Yeah. Establish yourself, and that's again like when Yudhishthir in the Mahabharata, where he's questioned by the Yaksha. He mentions that one philosopher, they're trying to establish himself by defeating the previous philosophers. So you always have to come up with something new. And then someone else comes along and they're just more skilled in the art of debate, then they disprove the previous one to establish themselves. Right. That's a large part of what science and academia has come to mean in this world. You got to publish a book that proves that nobody understood things as well as you do, and you've taken it to the next level by defeating the previous thinkers, and you establish your reputation that way. But the point that's being made in this verse, text 31, is that we get lost in this world and it clouds us. We get bewildered. We lose touch with our own soul when we debate this way, when we get caught up in these kind of conflicts. We lose the space within the mind to actually be lucid and clear and understand truth and understand what life is all about and how best to engage myself and how to become free. We become completely, it's one of the deepest, darkest kinds of illusion is, and our world is deeply caught up in it right now. This is how societies collapse, right? When they just start arguing like crazy and there's no longer any substance to the argument and there's no goodwill in the argument. There's no genuine trying to understand each other and trying to get to truth. It's just tearing one another down. And we may not be well educated in the 24 types of quibbling or every clincher that's listed. We may not have become well educated in that, but I can share something now, Raghunath, which simplifies the idea.
Tell me.
Of how we can, in a very practical way, when we do have different ideas, how we can talk about them, how we can debate them with goodwill and practical steps to understand each other better for the sake of coming to deeper, more lucid thought and clearer understanding. And I've read this on the show before, but I'll bring it up again. Okay?
Sure.
This is from an article that I found online. It was written by someone named Maria Popova. And I think the article is entitled How to Criticize with Kindness, Philosopher Daniel Dennett on the 4 Steps of Arguing Intelligently. So 4 steps. All right.
Okay.
But I'll read a little from the article because it seems that Daniel Dennett got them from Arthur Martine, who appears to be someone who wrote a lot of books on like etiquette and like how to write letters and how to things like that. So, but here's Maria Popova's article. She says, in disputes upon moral or scientific points, Arthur Martine counseled in his magnificent 1866 Guide to the Art of Conversation, let your aim be to come at truth, not to conquer your opponent. So you never shall be at a loss in losing the argument and gaining a new discovery. Isn't that a great point? In other words, when you enter into an argument to win, well, if you lose, you're totally embarrassed, right? You've made a fool of yourself. Whereas if you enter like, here's my thought, but I'm open to it being changed, you're never embarrassed, right?
Yeah.
And you're open to gaining a new discovery. Now she continues, of course, this isn't what happens most of the time when we argue, both online and off. But especially when we deploy the artillery of our righteousness from behind the comfortable shield of the keyboard, right? We don't even have rules like all of these trolls. They never use their name, It's like, hold it. You're coming on here and you're not even using your name. You're hiding behind, and
do we have trolls? Does Wisdom Sages have trolls?
I'm surprised how little.
Yeah, we don't have that troll.
Krishna's protecting us. I think Lord Shiva's protecting us on your behalf right now.
Yeah, we don't have trolls. You don't get this like
every now
nasty,
and then we get something. Someone produced that one video. We saw that one. Anyway,
I didn't see that. I don't watch those. If someone does something real, I don't do it.
Yeah. Okay. In any case, the form of quote unquote criticism, which is really a menace of reacting rather than responding, is worthy of Mark Twain's memorable remark that, here's Mark Twain, you ready?
Yeah.
The critic's symbol should be the tumblebug.
The tumblebug.
Critic's symbol should be the tumblebug.
Tell him about the tumblebug, Kastuba.
He deposits his egg in somebody else's dung. Otherwise, he could not hatch it.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to get mixed up in someone else's dung in order for your own thing to grow.
Yep.
Your own idea. But it needn't be this way. There are ways to be critical while remaining charitable. This is so good, right? If you want to be a devotee of Krishna, a bhakti yogi with a mind that's peaceful enough to engage deeply in hearing the holy name, this is worth considering. Right. Because I tell you, Raghunath, within the circles of the bhakti yogis, we'll find things to debate about and get heated about and criticize one another about and lose our clarity about. Subtle points, even insignificant points, we blow them up and say this is super important and that idiot is wrong.
Subtle points will ruin our whole devotional service of not offending devotees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
What's the first offense of the 10 offenses, Kasuba?
To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord.
To blaspheme the devotees. This is
Yeah.
like the first offense of chanting,
Yeah.
meaning you can't experience all the magic from chanting the holy name in kirtan or in japa because you blaspheme someone. So you're like taking them down. You're critical of them. You're trying to tear them down to make some nuanced point that you're not actually even sure about yourself. People will knock down their entire 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of building a house of cards.
Debating some subtle aspect of Raganuga Bhakti, which is so far beyond them.
So far beyond their realization that they will knock all of it down to make their point.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous, huh?
Okay. So this will be helpful. This, if you want to have a mind that's peaceful, you get into these debates on Facebook and you spend all day like, did someone respond? Oh, and then you're like, now I got to.
I'll tell them.
Response. Yeah. No, that world is not healthy for that kind of peaceful mind for meditation.
It's almost like devotees shouldn't be allowed to be on Facebook.
There's
too many words that could go wrong, and you could ruin your spiritual life too quick.
Okay. So let's hear these things, right? It says, but it needn't be that way. We don't need to be like the tumblebug. There are ways to be critical while remaining charitable, of aiming not to conquer, but to come at truth. Not to be right at all costs, but to understand and advance the collective understanding. Now that's healthy. That's healthy debate, right? Daniel Dennett, whom artificial intelligence pioneer Marvin Minsky has called our best current philosopher, and the next Bertrand Russell, poses an apt question that probes some of the basic tendencies and dynamics of today's everyone is a critic culture. Here's his question. Just how charitable are you supposed to be when criticizing the views of an opponent? In Intuition Pumps the Other Tools for Thinking, the same fantastic volume that gave us Dennett on the dignity and art science of making mistakes, he offers what he calls the best antidote for the tendency to caricature another one's opponent. This is what, I don't want to get political, but this is what Donald Trump does right off the bat. If you become his opponent, he gives you a nickname. Right? What is it? He's got now. It's
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah, Sleepy Joe. What is
it? It's like expert stuff I learned in junior high school. I was really good at wrecking people because I would just find, hey, what's up? You find something completely superficial. Hey, he's got big ears. So
needle
from
nose.
now on, he's big ears, and you're not going to stop calling that over and over. It's distracting from the actual conversation. But the problem is, it worked. It crushes the other person's ego, and
it gets other people turned against them. And
it's clever stuff.
Okay, so the best antidote for the tendency to caricature another one's opponent, and it's not even just caricaturing them, but even caricaturing their argument. Right? Trying to paint their argument into something that it's not really is at all. This is hate speech. So it wasn't hate speech. It was someone's opinion on something. It's like it's just not what you agree with. Okay, so so what he calls the best antidote for the tendency to caricature one's opponent is this list of rules formulated decades ago by the legendary social psychologist and game theorist Anatole Rappaport, best known for originating the famous tit-for-tat strategy of game theory. Dennett synthesizes the steps. Okay, here they are. How to compose a successful critical commentary. Step 1. This step 1 is such a game changer, Raghunath. It's, with using it with friends, using it with people that you're debating with, using it just in meetings and all this, this is a game changer. You ready, Raghunath?
Change my game.
Step number 1 is you should attempt to re-express your opponent's position so clearly, vividly, and fairly that your opponent says, thank you. I wish I thought of putting it that way. Exactly what I wanted to express. You just expressed it better
Imagine
than I
if there were a rule like the debate referee would say, okay,
did.
did that express how you felt, Hillary?
No, as a matter of fact, it didn't.
When he called you Hillary, crooked Hillary, did that express how you would call yourself? No, yeah, that would be wonderful if we could actually bring that.
Okay, well, we've run out of time, Ragnar. Let me read these 4 quick.
It's 9 o'clock. All right.
I'm going to read the 4, okay? You should attempt to re-express your target's position so clearly, vividly, and fairly that your target says, "Thank you. I wish I could have put it that way."
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, you should list any points of agreement. Okay, well, we agree on this and we agree on that. Here's where we disagree, right? You should list any points of agreement, especially if they are not matters of general or widespread agreement. Number 3, you should mention anything you have learned from your target. You know what? I don't agree with everything, but I did just learn this, and now I understand something better. Only then, step number 4, only then are you permitted to say so much as a word of rebuttal or criticism.
I like that.
Right? That's the way you do it.
That's the way.
You had to, didn't you?
Well, you led me up to. You're like, that's the way.
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't have done what you make it sound like you had to do it.
It's the end of the show. You know I'm fidgety, and you baited me with that one.
All right. But again, here's the question, Raghunath. When we're argumentative, when we're debating, even we think we're doing it on behalf of the Sampradaya, we think we're doing it, to elevate the are we actually operating under a haze, under a spell of illusion created by the Paramatma due to our insincerity and our unwillingness to be a pure servitor, right?
I like that. That. I'm with the wives of the Brahmins.
You want to hang with them?
Yeah, that's who I'm hanging with. The wives of the Brahmins, the Shabaris of this world.
Well, I always knew that an elderly gopi was your. I mean, I guess they're Brahmanas wives, but they're in the gopi jana kind of. They're part of the Vraja jana. They're the Vraja jana.
The wives of the wife of Vidura. This is my camp.
Well, she's not in Vraja, but
okay.
Takeaways?
Yes.
All right. Open your mind up to someone else's side.
Open your mind.
Become expert at seeing God in everything and everyone.
Like
Become
fire
expert.
in the wood. We're gonna stop. Okay.
Penetrate beyond the bark.
Penetrate. We're Penetrator from Harrisburg.
Reading and discussing Bhagavatam is the friction.
Yeah. Friction.
That's a good sound.
Yeah. We're entitled teens driving our parents' cars.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing worse than an entitled teen.
Nothing worse than an entitled teen who think they've got it all figured out.
Those entitled teens again.
Yeah, you're about to become that, Karuna. You're like 10 years old. You're like, why not me? I'll never be like that. Oh,
you give it 3 years.
See. Give the 3 years. Then I want to hear from your mom.
Debate should be about reaching the truth, not winning.
Okay.
Yeah. These are very good and boring. Like I wouldn't wear this. And
why did you have
because
to?
I think of how to spread bhakti in a very cool, sexy, catchy way.
You don't have to make someone else feel boring in order to do that, Raghunath. You could have expressed that another way. You could have even said,
"You're not boring.
These are great.
Our takeaways are boring.
These are great, but we need something a little bit more spicy."
Spicy.
Rather than catchy.
We're trying to like spread this movement. We're not trying to like snooze them.
No one's going to want to write in any takeaways if you.
This is not going to be viral.
You don't appreciate the effort, Raghunath.
We had a good one we said today. I was like, this should be a takeaway.
Don't get so caught up in conflict that you lose touch with your own soul.
Oh, yeah.
You got Amy Steller's one in here?
No.
Oh, that's the one you should. That was the takeaway.
Which one? About what?
Amy Steller's takeaway.
Their emergency.
Your emergency is not my emergency. Your emergency is not my emergency.
I'm sorry. That bores me, Raghunath. We
Does
need
not
something.
bore you? Are you kidding? This one is changing my life. This takeaway is changing my life, and I bet a lot of people out there put it up on the board if you
I
think
bet
that.
a lot of people agree with me.
And
your emergency is not my emergency.
No.
don't be a
Hold it.
tumblebug.
Karuna just said that one was boring. Right. What did you say, man?
That's because she doesn't have people. You should say that to your mom next time she's like, Karuna, you get in there and clean your room. Oh, yeah, Mom? Your emergency is not my emergency.
Oh, but Mara, I didn't hear the last one. I was talking when you said it.
Don't be a tumblebug.
Don't be a
Don't be a
tumblebug.
tumblebug in the dung.
Don't be a dung-loving tumblebug.
Dung beetle.
Oh.
Boring. That was heavy.
That was an EMT. That was a saying. That was said a lot. Oh, interesting. Richie Rich says when he was an EMT, people would say that your emergency is not my emergency.
Your emergency is not mine. When your knee, when your knee.
The other emergency is your emergency.
I know. That's what I was gonna say.
Wait a second, Richie Rich. Thanks everybody for joining us. Oh, the weekend's coming. Guess what? You sleep into 8 o'clock. We've been doing this at 8 o'clock anyway. Tomorrow's Q&A day. Looking forward to it. Sunday, Kastuba's going to interview a Swami, I think.
We don't know that, Raghunath. You can't say that.
Well, tell him we announced it.
What about A.K. Rangaswamy?